There goes.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a quick impromptu discussion. We got a trailer, a pretty comprehensive trailer for the Skeleton Crew today. I've got my co-host Hereth Productions. How are you doing?
Dude, it feels like a billion years since I've been on this podcast.
Yeah, we've been taking a little bit of a break. We did a lot of the Rings of Power stuff. And things with Star Wars have been a little slow recently until now. So we've got some plans to kind of get back in the groove of things, especially now that Skeleton Crew is going to be coming up. But Hereth, initial thoughts? Like, it's a 2-minute trailer. How do you feel about us being a month and 2 days away from the premiere of the 2-episode premiere of Skeleton Crew?
How I feel is basically the title of this stream of this. It just looks fun. It looks like your typical like 80s action adventure affair of, oh, these kids are taken away to this mysterious land and now they have to navigate this like mysterious place and figure out a way back home. And like I really like how this has this very E.T. and Goonies type aesthetic. And like I love how it's kind of just playing into John Watts' kind of strengths as a director, I feel like.
Yeah, like I grew up with the Goonies. I grew up with E.T. I like that was like what I was watching as a kid, and I feel very torn on the Skeleton Crew with this trailer. I'm gonna watch it, and I'm definitely gonna find things to enjoy about it. Right? I don't see any need to just be like, well, let me find everything wrong with the Skeleton Crew, the cinema sins of each episode. Like I don't want to do that, but the best way I could think about it is like the first time I just watched it like 3 minutes ago again, and the feeling I got when I first watched it today was the best way I could sum it up is if you would have told me in 2010 that Disney was going to buy Star Wars, this is the content I think they would have been putting out from the beginning. This and I don't mean this in a negative way. This is Disney Star Wars. This is like when I think when someone says the term Disney, there is like a gut reaction and emotion to regular people. That's The Lion King. That's Toy Story. That's Fox and the Hound, 101 Dalmatians. This to me is Disney's first Star Wars show, if that makes sense.
Like you're thinking like Disney Channel original? Like I'm trying to figure out
what
tonally you're going after.
It looks much bigger budget than like Disney Channel original. No, it's just that this is the first show that feels on brand with Disney. Versus this is just Star Wars being owned by Disney. I think that you've definitely gotten that. I think the sequel trilogy had some of that 21st century Disney humor baked into it. I think the way that a lot of the shows that have been coming out, the way that they've been structured, the way they've kind of presented themselves, definitely has that Disney flair. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think what they do generally is pretty good. Like, yes, they're a production company. They are going to have hits and misses along the way. They have had hits and misses since their inception. They're not immune to this. But I don't know, like watching it, I was like, this is when someone says Disney Star Wars today, it has a whole different meaning because of like, the grifter verse of like Disney Star Wars is the bad Star Wars. And I don't agree with that. This literally feels like Walt Disney Corporation's Star Wars. Like if Walt Disney were alive and he knew that he was buying Star Wars, this is what he would make.
Right. To me, it's like maybe I'm looking at a different angle because like I also have the preconceived notion of going to the studio showcase last year in Celebration and then hearing them talk about the show. It kind of has me kind of intrigued because it seems like they're using, obviously because John Watts, as director, kind of always has been pulling from like with his Spider-Man trilogy is very much pulling from like John Hughes. This is very much pulling from like your childlike classics of like Steven Spielberg and the Goonies and like that kind of stuff. So it's like he likes to bring these kind of like this is like you're kind of expecting this aesthetic and then I'm going to kind of flip it on you and then make it this instead, which is just kind of been his kind of shtick since At least
Yeah.
in big Hollywood. No, I haven't seen any of his smaller projects.
I think that the Skeleton Crew has a lot of potential to surprise a lot of people. I I don't have any doubt that it's going to be well written, that it's not going to be fun to watch, but I guess the what I when I watched it the second time, and I've kind of, I've seen the other like teasers and stuff they put out, and I'm just like, this to me feels more like a show that someone in Star Wars would watch, not a show that takes place in Star Wars, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like this seems like what Padme would have watched right before she became queen. Like that's what this almost feels
Interesting.
like to me. That she would have watched the show called Skeleton Crew, the
Yeah.
Holovid Skeleton Crew. The thing that I I'm interested to see where they take it, but there are certain things that have been present for a long time with Skeleton Crew. I think the most jarring one is the suburbs that they've been
Yeah.
showing. And the one thing I'm interested to see how they execute it, because if this is just an establishing shot, that's supposed to evoke a certain type of emotion, like okay. But the one thing about Star Wars that I think from the beginning um, has always kind of held true, except for a few things here and there, is that everything is supposed to be recognizable, but not reflective,
Mhm.
right? Like the Mos Eisley Cantina is definitely a bar, but it's not a bar you've ever been to. The what do you call it? The Cloud City on
Mhm.
Bespin is definitely reminiscent of like a luxury hotel or a luxury office building, but not one that you've ever been to.
Right. It's like worn down but familiar.
Yeah, and I think the first time we got like this was Dex's Diner of like, no, I've been to Dex's Diner. I could tell you where, like that's on like West 4th and 13th and or Broadway. Like it's just one of those things. Like yeah, that's a diner. That's a diner ass diner.
Mhm.
Um, and and Dex's Diner caught a lot of flack during Attack of the Clones because it did kind of break this unwritten rule that like it has to feel familiar, but it can't be too familiar. And I think the suburbs break that it's too familiar.
Mhm.
Like it's like this is just Gwinnett County, Georgia, man. This is not the planet of,
Right.
any given planet, right? And that's where I think this show's really going to struggle, um, because they're taking a lot of risks. I think it's when people say like, "Oh, I want to move away from the Skywalker saga,"
Mhm.
right? I want more original ideas, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. But the thing with the Skeleton Crew being so influenced by the Goonies, by ET, um, by Stand By Me,
Mhm.
right? Is that it almost feel, even though we're getting away from the Skywalker saga, we're just emulating another piece of media. And it almost feels unoriginal in its own way. And I think that they have all the
Yeah.
opportunity in the world to kind of show people that this is their own story. This is like a fun and different take on it, because like it's not like Stranger Things is a long distant, TV
Yeah.
show. It's still going on. Um, and I think you have a little bit of that DNA injected into it as well. And it's one of those things that first opportunity, I'm not a writer, right?
Yeah.
The first opportunity to really step away from the Skywalker saga, what do you do with it? And I think we got a little bit of it in the Acolyte.
Mhm.
Um, but it was kind of like that same story, the dark to the light to the dark story that we've seen time and time again. And this one is like, this is definitely different for Star Wars, but not different for TV. Um, that's where I think this show's really going to struggle. I feel like I'm really ranting against it, but I am excited to watch it.
Yeah.
I think this has the potential to be everyone's least favorite TV show.
I feel the opposite. I feel like this may be the Andor of like this year, where it's like a lot of people are sleeping on it, and then it's gonna surprise a lot of people. Because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that they're not showing in the trailers. Because I
Sure,
remember
this is
in
probably the first
Anaheim,
3
yeah,
episodes.
because in Anaheim when they quietly announced, we're like, we just finished filming the show, and we didn't announce. They described the show as dark, but Clone Wars levels of dark. So we know it's gonna get away from like it's gonna start with this like 80s tone, but it's gonna start moving a little darker as it goes on. So
Yeah, but there's only so dark that you can
yeah,
go with kids. Like even Stranger Thing gets like there's a limitation as to how
yeah,
dark you can go with that, right? Like that doesn't mean like one of the kids can't die. That doesn't mean that they're not going to get in really dangerous situations. But like there is a limitation to that. There's a limitation. Like you're not going to get a prison sequence out of a skeleton crew. It's not happening. Um, like and that's the thing is like I think that when you look at something like Andor, I think that Andor is so special. I think that Andor is very much Star Wars for people who grew up with Star Wars. And it's not the, hey, remember when you were younger and how awesome that was? No, Andor is you grew up with Star Wars. This is still Star Wars. This is the Star Wars that's been baking in the back of your head for 40 years. This is they didn't show how bad the Empire was. I want to see how bad the Empire truly is. That's Andor. And I think that it's one of those things that Andor being so drama heavy
mhm,
was why it was kind of the sleeper hit, because it wasn't flashing lightsabers. It wasn't nonstop blaster action. It was a political drama. It definitely had its action scenes. It had its
mhm.
heists. It had its prison breaks. Yeah, it had all those things as a part of it, but it was also so much more than that. And that's where I get nervous is that these are all new characters. They're kids,
Mhm.
and I think that Stranger Things has shown us like just because they're kids doesn't mean that people won't resonate with it and won't like it. Like Stranger Things was a cultural phenomenon. Um, I'm just like, how deep are they going to lean into the Goonies?
Right, because it's like I'm wondering if it's gonna be multiple seasons because it's like obviously this is a coming of age type of story and adventure, and that's kind of what John Watts kind of leans towards as a director is doing a lot of middle school to high school levels of storytelling. That's kind of in his bread and butter. So I'm excited to see how that's gonna go. And also I've seen a lot of theories of like how this is gonna connect because obviously it's a part of that Mandalorian type of era of the New Republic. So I'm curious to see how it's gonna tie in because I've seen people theorize that maybe they get jumped almost to where like near where Ahsoka and Sabine are. Maybe that's where they get stranded, and they're in that system of the Outer Rim, and like that's how they
Yeah,
like back
I,
into it.
I think there's a lot of things that can happen, and I think I've brought it up multiple times on Pod Ones is that every Disney Plus show has done a good job of surprising us in one way or the other. The way that even with the Acolyte, the Acolyte was never never promoted as a murder mystery, and it very much is for that first half. Um, but it's one of those things. Like I think they're definitely showing us these let's just say these first 4 episodes
Yeah,
with
first three
probably
to four.
5 frames of like a later episode or something like that. Um, and it's like where do they go? And I think Nick hit it right on the head is that how safe are they going to play it to appeal to a younger audience? Um, because I think the reality is the other side of the fandom, right, is not going to like this, no matter how
Yeah.
well they execute it. Let's just say, and I think it's going to be pretty hard to do. Let's say that this is better than Stranger Things.
Mhm.
They're not going to like it. Like, this is not, this doesn't involve Anakin. It doesn't involve the clones. It's none of that stuff. It's none of the stuff that, it doesn't tick their boxes, right? As
Mhm.
much as they say that we're just looking to tick boxes in Hollywood, like they need their boxes ticked for something to, you know, be good. This will tick negative boxes for them, I feel.
Oh yeah, of course. Like I
Yeah.
remember, like when Hollywood Reporter came out with like their screenshots from the show, I made like a post while at the New York Comic Con that was like of the lines of like, if anyone criticizes these kids actors, it's war.
Yeah, and we've already seen tweets, and that one tweet, at least there was one tweet going around saying like, I'm still, you know, it's like, you know, this is ridiculous that people are saying protect these kids. And this is one of those instances where I think this is everyone taking everyone's words out of context.
Mhm.
I think that the person that posted that viral tweet was not saying anything in good faith, but I also understand the sentiment of what they were trying to say. I don't think that they were like directly saying like, I'm gonna bully the shit out of these kids. I don't think that's what they were saying. I think they were being like, I think they're saying like, I like, without knowing anything about it, like, I'm ready to criticize it. And I'm like, that's a weird mentality to have. Like, I'm going into it like, I'm skeptical about it, but I'm going into it looking for something to like. You know, I love Star Wars and I want to enjoy Star Wars, so I'm going to go into it and just enjoy it. Like, Ahsoka is probably my least favorite show.
Mhm.
I can tell you 20 different scenes from Ahsoka that I was like, that was awesome. Like, I love that. Like, I could go on way longer about what I loved about Ahsoka versus what I didn't like about Ahsoka. And I'm going to probably have the same with Skeleton Crew. And the one thing that I would love more than anything is if I'm just surprised that, like, it turns out really, really good. I just, from what they're showing us, I think this is, whereas I didn't think the Acolyte would be an uphill battle. I thought
Mhm.
this was like, I thought the Acolyte was like, you know, you know,
Cash money.
cash. Yeah, like there's no way anyone would hate the Acolyte. Wild how
Wha-
that turned out. Um and it's one of those things that, like, I'm going into the Skeleton Crew not because of what happened with the Acolyte. I'm just how the fandom menace is like, people are going to hate this show. I know
Oh
people are going to
yeah,
hate this show. And I see why they're going to hate the show. And that is frustrating in its own right, because I'm like, I've been the first to say, like, I would love a Star Wars so and so. Like, I would love, you know, a Star Wars horror film. I would
Mhm.
love, you know, a Star Wars, you know, legal, you know, drama. You know, like, I want these cool things that we know exist, you know, to just be interpreted in Star Wars. Like, yeah, like Rogue One should just be Top Gun, but with Star Wars. And I think it's, you know, I don't, maybe it's just like a strange marketing thing, right?
I
Of
didn't
like,
even think about that. Sorry, not to interrupt your thought. I didn't think about
yeah,
like Lost in Space. Like I was like, oh yeah, that kind of does
yeah,
track
Lost
better
in, like,
with the show.
the show Lost in Space, while definitely dated,
Mhm.
is great. But I remember it was like the 1999 like
Have you
movie.
seen the new Netflix version that came out like in the last 5 years, or is it, the show's finished now?
No.
No.
Did you see the Gary Oldman like 99 remake of
No,
Lost in Space?
I'm talking about the Netflix one with Deborah Chow as the director.
Oh, I would, maybe I'll check it out. But like, the original show is great. The movie from the late 90s did not age well. There's some bad special effects in there. There's some cool stuff in there for sure. Um, but yeah, like, Lost in Space has lots of potential for something like Skeleton Crew. Yes,
Wait,
Matt
he's
LeBlanc,
in
Lost in
Lost in
Space.
Space. What the
We should
hell?
watch Lost in Space. I think it's 1999. I'll have to double check, but it's an interesting movie. I'll say this: I distinctly remember the first two acts of the film being really good, and the final act being like, even as a kid, I was like, I liked that movie a lot. I was like 11 or 12 when it came out, so I was like kind of the right age. And I remember like stopping the movie multiple times when it got to the end, because I was like, it gets really, it like, the best way I can put it is like sci-fi Scorpion King.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's very strange. Very strange indeed. But that being said, like those first two acts of Lost in Space are really good. And the show itself is the original show, like the show from the 50s and 60s is really good. Obviously it's a show from the 50s and 60s. It hasn't aged super well, but yeah, like there's so much they could pull from this, right? Um, but
Yeah, the
I
thing I'm
go ahead.
most curious about, because like the thing that it's obviously has the most amount of mystery around it, and I'm surprised they revealed it in the teaser trailer because we saw it in the celebration trailer. I thought they were gonna hit it till the show premiered. Was Jude Law's character being force sensitive this entire time because he's kind of giving off this Kanan. I don't know if you. I've barely read New Dawn, but like like that kind of like almost hiding as a scoundrel type and like not your typical force sensitive person that's been in hiding all this time. So finding it very interesting how he's good at time because he's clearly like some type of bounty hunter scoundrel, like underworld guy. So I'm curious to see how what the reveal is, and I'm hoping it's not another "he's an Order 66 survivor this entire time." Like that would be the most boring
Yeah,
outcome.
I wouldn't be, again, it all comes down to like how do they tie it in, right? The thing that I think is so strange is if we, if when Disney bought Star Wars and you're kind of like, hey, we're going to do a lot of things with Star Wars. We're going to have like lots of different types of genres blending into Star Wars. Like it'll be this, but Star Wars. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And I know that like we've had a bunch of shows at this point, and like while Andor is definitely like a political drama, but Star Wars, it is still like a prequel to Rogue One, which is a prequel
Yeah.
to A New Hope. Like for our first, like this is so and so genre, but Star Wars, The Goonies wouldn't be my first choice as a first show. Because I feel like this really is like we want to make this type of content, but make it Star Wars. Like I would have picked like Car Chase, something like that you could really get a lot of people on board with, or like, I mean, obviously the obvious one, Rogue One. Like this is a Top Gun Dunkirk movie, but Star
Yeah.
Wars. And I think there's other cinema tropes that you could adopt to Star Wars. There, it's infinite. You could do anything Star Wars, right?
I've always said for the longest time, when obviously inspired by Book of Boba Fett, I always said like crime drama about Star Wars would be really interesting with
Yeah.
like Crimson Dawn.
Yeah. Like if Star Wars Outlaws were a show, I think that could be really interesting. Like what is going on when you have like a mafia-esque, like Sopranos style Star Wars show. Yeah, like that's what I'm like. That would have been a good first jump into this. And I guess you could say Mandalorian is like a Western, but Star Wars has always kind of been a Western in a way.
Yeah, with going back to New Hope, it's very like Western samurai. Like that's kind of already been
Yeah.
done a lot.
And there's aspects of like all the movies that have like that Western vibe to it. But yeah, it's an, I am so intrigued by Skeleton Crew because I think it has all the opportunity in the world. I think you're going to have a lot of people that are going to really gravitate towards this show. And there's definitely stuff that appeals to me. Like they spend a lot of time focusing on flipping switches and pressing buttons on the ship in this trailer. So that appeals to me.
I mean, you're gonna see a
I
kid
love
crash a ship, which is gonna
I
be
love when people flip switches. Like that is peak cinema to me. You press the
man.
button on the spaceship, awesome. Show
Man,
me
you must
again.
really love that Solo trailer then from back in 2017 with Han just
Solo's an
flipping the
incredible
switch.
movie. Okay. Um no, like credit where credit's due. The spaceships have gotten way better. The spaceships have always been cool in Star Wars, but I do think the spaceships have gotten better under the Disney era. But man, I wish I were more excited about Skeleton Crew. Like, I'm not excited, and I don't want to
Right.
seem like a downer.
Also, the fact that they keep doubling down on, because it was supposed to come out December of last year, if you remember correctly. And then I thought it was gonna get shifted to like maybe the spring or the summer. But the fact that they keep shifting it back to the like December, November makes me think it's a holiday story
That's
because like
studio fuckery, in my opinion. But Nick says, "Do you think Goonies is a good first place to jump into a LA series aimed at live action series aimed at younger audiences?" No, I think they should do Skibbity Toilet in Star Wars.
oh my god.
Uh, no, for a younger audience, I think that the Goonies does not hit a younger audience. I think the Goonies hits a Gen X, late millennial audience. I think that Stranger Things also hits the Gen X, late millennial audience.
You know the bit of like at Comic Cons where they're like, if you're over 30, it's Journey. If you're under 30, it's the Glee. I feel like this show is, if you're over 30, it's the Goonies. If you're under 30, it's Stranger Things.
Yeah, like, but again, I do think that like a lot of the people that I know that talk about Stranger Things are my age. Like, I know that there's younger fans of Stranger Things. I'm not saying there aren't, but
Right.
like, I tend to see, like, when I see people talking about Stranger Things, when Stranger Things is airing, I need to catch up on Stranger Things. I've seen like the first 2 seasons, so what
I
do I
mean,
know?
I think you're fine. The season 3 is fine. Season 4 is probably as good as season 1, and then season 5 is taking a billion years.
Which good for them. For like, Netflix has a show that lasted for 5 seasons. That's wow.
But those kids are like late college students, and they're still high
Did
school.
I ever tell you I have met 11?
Oh, wait, actually, Millie Bobby Brown?
Yeah. I met 11 when they were filming season 1.
Oh, shit.
I was working at Jimmy John's. I was doing bike deliveries for Jimmy John's, and this was in Atlanta where they filmed Stranger
Oh,
Things
because
season
yeah,
1.
all the show
They were
productions are in
filming they
Georgia.
were filming in Midtown, Taxes, baby. And she would come in with, I think it was the kid that played Finn. And
Oh,
they would come
yeah.
in they would come in multiple days in a row when they were shooting. And we didn't know what was going. We knew that she was like, there is a young girl, like a young shaved head girl with a credit card coming in to a place in Midtown with her friend, and they're ordering like grown up food. And we're just like, and the thing is, Stranger Thing, no one knew what Stranger Things was. No
Right.
one
This
knew who.
season
We're
1.
like, who the fuck is this Alien 3 Ellen Ripley wannabe motherfucker that's like 12 years old? And like, we asked her, I'm like, hey, like, do you work? Do your parents work here? And she was like, no, I'm doing this show for Netflix and we're filming. We're like, oh, that's cool. What show is it? And the spiel, right? I'm like, oh, I kind of had the same reaction. Like, oh, they're redoing the Goonies. Okay. She was very nice, but again, she was like 12 at the time.
Yeah.
And like, we're talking, like, when I say meta, like, I had a singular conversation with her, like, and I was like, because like, I'm just like, I'm running in and out, like, on and off my bike, and like everyone kept making fun of her. Because it was like, just like, why does this girl look like Ripley from Alien 3? Like, this is hilarious. And then we're like, oh yeah, we just finally, like, I was like, we have to ask her, because it was like the 4th day in a row she had come in, and we're like, do your parents work here? Do you live here? Like, what's going on? And then yeah, that was it. That's my Stranger Things story. I haven't met anyone from Skeleton Crew, so I guess I fell off there.
I mean, you should have just stayed in Georgia, I guess.
I should have stayed doing bike deliveries in Georgia. I would have met everyone.
You would have had funny leaks. You would have been like, oh, but they're filming Star Wars over there.
Yeah, I don't know if Star Wars is being filmed in
I think it's
Georgia.
in London.
I think it's all in LA.
It's LA or London usually.
Yeah.
It's been the 2 locations for ILM.
But yeah, I just like, I am excited to be surprised. about Skeleton Crew. I am going in fully expecting this to be my least favorite show. Not that I'm gonna hate it, not that I'm gonna say it's trash or any of that's like nonsense. I'm just like I'm fully expecting to like walk out and be like, that was fun. I'm never watching that again.
I mean, do you fully expect? Obviously, I'm not trying to like at you out, but like you spend a lot of time on like Star Wars TikTok, just constantly going into like people's lives and like doing little discussions and debates. Do you feel like this is going to be the show? But while it may be your least favorite, you're going to be the most like
Oh, I
defensive
will
of.
defend the fuck out of this show. Don't you misunderstand me in any way, shape, or form. Like, as soon as someone starts saying that, oh, actually, they didn't have a base on this planet, I'm like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
Or my favorite's going to be, oh my God, there's suburbs in Star Wars. This is going to break the lore. This is
The
disrespectful to
suburbs
George
in Star
Lucas's
Wars,
legacy.
the suburbs in Star Wars, I can only say is like, yeah, it's stupid. It's just as stupid as Dex's Diner. Like, that's the only thing I have to say about the suburbs. I like it's the space Vespas in Book of Boba Fett, Dex's Diner, and the Skeleton Crew suburbs are all equally stupid in my opinion. But they're part of Star Wars. Like, just because I don't like it, just because I don't feel like it fits, like, doesn't mean anything. You know what's also fucking stupid? The musical number in Return of the Jedi Special Edition. It's fucking stupid.
Latinx superiority.
Like, the special edition of Return of the Jedi is a travesty. I will stand by that. I like the special editions of A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Return of the Jedi, terrible. The beak in the Sarlacc pit, disgusting. I hate it. But again, these are stupid things in Star Wars that like I don't like, that I don't agree with. That I think Star Wars would overall be better if these didn't exist. I love Dex, right? And I can in retrospect say that like Dex's Diner is hilarious. And I love Dex as a character, and I love the fact that he has a 50s diner just like parked in Coruscant. Like, it's so absurd. I enjoy it. But like, if someone were to ask me what my favorite part of Star Wars is, Dex's Diner is not up there. Like the musical number in Return of the Jedi is not up there, and I can guarantee you, the suburbs and Skeleton Crew will not be up there. Like, unless they really turn it around, right? That like this makes so much sense, and if someone who's a better creative person than I am can pull it off, great. I'm willing to understand that. But from what I see, I think the suburbs are stupid. But as you said, like, if I go into a TikTok live, or if there's like a discussion going on and someone is saying that the show is bad, like solely because of the suburbs, I will say, so Attack of the Clones is bad solely because of Dex's Diner, correct?
Yeah, and then like, because like you said, like obviously this is more suburbs based, but like going to like, oh, the original trilogy is the only aesthetics of Star Wars, and we have stuff like the prequels and the High Republic. It's like you can't use that as like a launch pad, even though we're
like
very much in the New Republic.
I, as someone who grew up with the prequels and loves the prequels and defends the prequels, I understand the notion that the prequel aesthetic doesn't really actually fit Star Wars. And I agree that like there is a set aesthetic, and again, it goes back to what we're talking about in the beginning, is like it's supposed to feel familiar, not the same. Like, you should never feel like you would stumble there. Like, I'd have to go back, and re look at it, as a still frame, which I don't have the time or energy to do, but I'm just like, it really does look like a corporate mock-up of what Tesla would picture theirs, like Tesla cyber suburb would look like.
But this is an interesting theory that Nick just shot out. The idea that like almost kind of like a Fallout type of thing, where it's like, this is like the perfect planet to live on. This is like Palpatine's dream. And like,
I like the theory. I think the aesthetic doesn't line up, if that makes sense. Like, I'd have to maybe pause it on the trailer again. That suburb does not look Imperial to me. It looks very New Republic to me. Like, this is what This feel okay. And this is what could be really interesting is like all of these theories and stuff like that is I feel like the suburb that we see is probably what a um Chandrillan post Empire um reconstruction would look like. Like this is a core world reconstruction post Empire. Like this is cookie cutter as fast as we can build it and to get rid of the Empire. And I think that in itself could be really cool of like, this is the fastest way to get people to a more habitable, livable state past the Empire. I do think there's a way to make it look less like an Amblin cul-de-sac. Like if they
Yeah.
pull it off, they pull it off. And I'm not saying that, but it's just like I do feel like I could stumble into the Skeleton Crew suburb, like driving around like the suburbs of Washington, the
Mhm.
suburbs of Georgia. And that's where for me personally, that's where Star Wars kind of loses me sometimes is when they pull stuff like that because like not to like drag the
Yeah.
dude we've dragged Star Wars through, but like the bricks and screws argument to me was so stupid because Ferrex looked very Star Wars. That looked like a very rustic, like blue collar town
Mhm.
with its brick, facades and stuff like that. But it still felt Star Wars. Like there was like, there's no way I'm gonna walk into to a place and there's gonna be a dude like banging on a Durasteel bar that acts as a bell. Like that's not happening no matter where I go. Like I could go to anywhere middle America that went through like the industrial revolution, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not going to see that. I'm not going to see something like that that feels both, you know, industrial revolution and yet super advanced. Like that's not going to happen as I drive through like Erie, Indiana, right? That's not happening. With the Skeleton Crew, just based on what we've seen in the trailer,
Mhm.
just on the trailer, I feel like I could stumble into that neighborhood. I feel like I could stumble into Dex's Diner. Um, I have stumbled into Dex's Diner. It's a place. It was great. The food was good. They had a
10
great
out of 10
pasta
strong
there.
recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. But like, yeah, like this is, I guess the way I can say it, and it's funny, like talking about Dex's Diner is like,
Mhm.
there's a part of me that wants like a Star Wars like Hell's Kitchen that takes place in
Oh my
Dex's Diner,
god, where
right?
Dex is the absolute
But
worst.
this is my idea of what Star Wars in 2030 looks like, right? This is that when we've established a lot of other
Star Wars
things.
reality television, Jesus Christ.
Exactly, right? And I'm into that. Like the idea that Disney at some point could make a show, like I said in the beginning, like what Skeleton Crew looks like is a hollow vid that someone in Star Wars would watch. And I'm not against that. I think it would be cool if we got a show that was very much a meta show of like this is a hollow vid that someone would watch in Star Wars. I just think it's like it's such an interesting time to do this, and maybe there's marketing data that I don't know about and someone way smarter than me is making these calls, but I'm just like, with the way that the past couple shows, regardless of how good I feel about the Acolyte, Mandalorian season 3, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, people aren't there's definitely people who are like not thrilled with the state of Star Wars. And I think even not toxic fans, right? There's just people that are like, yeah, Star Wars isn't doing it for me right now. I don't think this is the show
No.
to pull people back in. And again, like, look, the schedule is the schedule. Like they are going through what they have made. These shows are not made over the weekend. These shows are made over a period of years. And this
Right.
is just the lineup we're at. And I don't think anyone, myself included, could have foreseen how the Acolyte would have been received. Um,
But I also find it, like I said, very interesting because this was supposed to come out last year, and the fact that it got delayed twice, and it wasn't like, oh, 2 months this way, 2 months this way. It was like 2 years the other direction. So the fact that they're taking their time on this specific project kind of intrigues me because it's like, why skeleton crew? That's why I'm kind of like, that's why I'm kind of going into the vein of like, this could surprise people because they keep because there was a period of time, if you remember, from like late 2023 when the show was supposed to come out to now, where it was pretty much crickets about the show. Like we knew they were in
Sure.
post production, we knew they were wrapped with the show, but it was like just sitting on a hard drive.
Yeah, I'm not gonna put any conspiracies
Yeah.
out there that this is the secret bombshell that is gonna reignite everyone's love for Star Wars. The thing that I guess also makes me nervous is this almost the what we have been seeing. And again, I think this is gonna be fine. I don't think the show's gonna be bad. It's just like this feels like they are trying to capitalize on the success of Stranger Things way too late. Um, like this very much feels like Vikings trying to capitalize on Game of Thrones. This is every video game that has tried to beat Call of Duty or beat Fortnite. You cannot beat by replication. Like you have to do your own thing. And I hope they are doing their own thing. I really, really hope they are. I really hope that they're not trying to emulate Stranger Things. I really hope they're not trying to remake the Goonies, but just set it in Star Wars. I hope that like what we talked about, the first 3-4 episodes have that vibe, and then the show takes a turn and it becomes its very own thing. That's what I hope. And the fact that it's Skeleton Crew and that they have been showing this ship a lot and they show the kids interacting with the ship, like it makes me very much think that this is going to be that it's not about them coming home every night, right? Like they do in Stranger Things. Like, you know, what happens when they have to get together and meet in the cul-de-sac? Like, no, they're on this ship.
And
Like
they're stuck together.
they're stuck. And this ship, you know, it seems like a big ship and there's a lot of space in there for them. And they're not the crew that's supposed to be operating it. They're operating it as a skeleton crew. And I hope that's the direction they take it, because it could be a, you know, like I'm sure it will be a very much coming of age story. But it'd be like, hey, these kids, you know, one of those things, like maybe the ship has it'd be, you know, one of the things, it's its own character almost. Like that's me fantasizing about, you know,
And
spaceships
yeah,
getting what
and
they
like
want.
I'm curious to see, like, because I already know who the antagonists are because they revealed it. I don't know if they revealed it in a trailer yet. It's supposed to be the pirate gang from Mando season 3.
Yeah, like that, and it's like even if you don't connect that it's like from Mandalorian, it's like it's very clear that pirates of some sort are the bad guys here.
Also, I know we've joked about it for a while, and I'm not like being like cameos, but like I think Skeleton Crew would be the funniest way to bring in Hondo into that era of the New Republic, like Hondo interacting with this group of kids. I think that would be funny. I think that could be a really interesting dynamic.
Nick says thoughts on Nick Frost as a robot pirate. I have the same feeling as anyone being in Star Wars. Like Star Wars is so far reaching through so many generations that anyone who has had a good career in Hollywood in any capacity that has the opportunity to be in Star Wars, that's
They're to
awesome
take
for
it.
them. That's awesome for them. Like Lizzo. Look, I'll be the first to say that the Lizzo Jack Black episode of Band of Season 3 did not hit for me.
I mean, din kicking B1 battle droids was probably the funniest part of that episode.
It's funny, but like that was a very jarring moment, especially for a show like The Mandalorian. But you know, at the same time, like I have opinions on Jack Black. But you know, like good for Jack Black, good for Lizzo. Like they're Star Wars fans, and the fact that they get to be a part of the Star Wars universe, like that's awesome for them. Like that's so cool.
Right. It's like Cryptoverse can just go kick rocks.
Yeah, like you can say, like I have no problem saying, like, yeah, that was a weird episode that I don't think fits super well in The Mandalorian. Like that episode feels like it probably would be more at home in something like the Skeleton Crew. But we don't know what the Skeleton Crew's vibe will be. You know, maybe I'm totally wrong on that. But yeah, like Nick Frost being you know, a voice actor, or maybe he has like maybe he's in a suit or something like that. Sick. Like that's awesome. I know people like have different opinions on different people being in Star Wars, like, but I know like the sheer amount of celebrities that have been stormtroopers before is like insane.
Oh yeah, in the sequel trilogy alone, yeah.
Yeah. So like that stuff, I think it's cool. Like it costs, well, I'm not gonna say it costs the audience nothing. It's just their voice. Like, look, I'm sorry, Bill Burr in The Mandalorian,
That was
incredible.
great.
The Boston accent being canonized, phenomenal. Yeah, I love it. So yeah, I think, like, in conclusion, before we like harp on a 2-minute trailer
Yeah.
for too long, like I'm excited. I'm excited for the show. I'm gonna watch it as soon as it comes out. Like we'll pop it on the TV as soon as it's out, and I'm excited to be surprised. And if I'm not surprised, it's okay. It's okay for a show to be my least favorite. I'm okay
Yeah.
with that. And if the show somehow bests Andor for me, good for Skeleton Crew. Good for it. I
Yeah.
don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think that's gonna happen ever.
Right. And like when I mean the show being a surprise hit, I don't mean it getting to the bar of Andor because Andor's has a really like it's like the wine of Disney Plus shows where it's like really up there. To me, like I see it being like a show that's not on people's radars, kind of like I'm not watching it, but kind of like how Agatha all along is surprising people and shooting up streaming charts. I could see this show being kind of like under here. I mean, it just takes off because people are kind of not sleeping about it, and then word of mouth kind of spreads around. And be like,
Yeah.
hey, have you seen the show? It's kind of really good. It's kind of like those 80s classics you grew up on, and then it kind of being really good.
Yeah.
Like we know what the ceiling of the show is, but I don't think the floor is too low. I think it's
No.
going to be like a 7 out of 10,
The
maybe
what
a surprise 8.
what the trailers have shown us, like, it looks like it's a high quality show. It looks like a show that you're gonna find there's stuff to enjoy in there, right? If Andor's wine skeleton crew is grape juice, this is true, and grape juice is pretty good.
Yeah.
Grape juice is really good. Yeah, it's just I'm ready. I'm ready to be surprised by this
Yeah.
show, and I hope I am.
But
But
yeah, I feel
yeah,
like we're going in circles.
yeah. Any other closing thoughts on the Skelly crew?
I mean, Jude Law has a cool gun.
Jude Law's a cool dude. I don't know if you ever seen any other movies with Jude Law in it. Jude Law's a cool dude. You ever seen AI?
No.
Great movie. Great movie. It's Jude Law and Haley Joel Osment. Great movie. Steven Spielberg directed it. Really good. Worth watching. But yeah, that's gonna crush it for the Skeleton Crew, which airs in exactly 1 month and 2 days. So we will be here. We'll probably do a reaction, watch along to the Skeleton Crew on the channel, and then we'll probably follow the same format. We'll do a watch along, and then a day or two later, we'll do a recap with some guests. I think maybe the plan that has been circulating is that we will team up yet again with the voices of Arda to talk about the Skeleton Crew, because there's a lot of people.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of overlap with Lord of the Rings.
There's a lot of overlap, and there's a lot of people who are not super into Star Wars. And Hereth, save your game. But that's going to be it for the Pod Ones podcast, talking about the Skeleton Crew. Hereth, I will see you later.